So much flows from family, as the rich and powerful memoirs nominated this year for the RBC Taylor Prize ably demonstrate. The prize for literary nonfiction will be announced on Monday. And as has become our tradition here, we've got the authors of those books with us tonight for a preview. So let's welcome, in alphabetical order, Bill Gaston. He is author of Just Let Me Look at You on fatherhood. Ian Hampton, author of Jan in 35 Pieces, a memoir in music. Kate Harris, author of Lands of Lost Borders, Out of Bounds on the Silk Road. Elizabeth Hay, author of All Things Consoled, a daughter's memoir. And Darrel J. McLeod, author of Mamaskatch, a Cree coming of age. And we are delighted to continue this tradition of having the nominated authors here with us in the studio. Congratulations to you all. Do you know who's won?
Thank you.
You don't know who's won yet.
One of the five of us.
One of the five. Yes, very good, Darrel. That's very good. Let's just go around the table here and ask the obvious first question, but I always am curious as to what inspires someone to lock themselves in a room all by themselves for a very long period of time, shut out the outside world, and write a book. Bill, what inspired you to write your book?
Oh, well, it was an inspiration that lasted for 10 years. You know, it took that long to really take hold, but I think the initial inspiration was that after my father died, I found out, in essence, a secret life. He had a very pained life, and he had all these secrets he died with. And these secrets kind of explained his life, explained the way he was. And he didn't tell anybody. So I decided to tell everybody his secrets. In a way, it sounds a bit cruel of me, but it explains his life, and it kind of redeemed his life, and everybody kind of forgives him his many sins, you know, after learning his secrets. So that was the main inspiration. And I guess you might say the second inspiration had to do with, it seemed to be a very common story that a lot of men, fathers and sons, there seems to be kind of a lack of communication, you know, and a yearning to communicate, but it doesn't happen. So I saw how common the story was, and that made me want to write it as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. Elizabeth, parents are at the center of your book as well.
Yes, they are. Well, I'm always writing something, so I'm always in my room. That's where I like to be.
What book number is this for you?
Maybe 10.
Wow, okay.
And I found this book in the writing of it, really. I didn't intend to write a memoir about my parents, but I found that a lot of the material I was working with actually were things I'd written about them, and they had died. So I was freer to write about them. I could write about my father's anger. There was material I'd written in my 30s and 40s about that, but I had put it in a drawer. And so I was, enough time had gone by, and the material was compelling enough that I could sort of go the distance with it, in a way.
Gotcha. Jan, you're not writing about your parents, you're writing about you.
I'm not writing about me at all.
Well, okay, go ahead.
I set out to write a book about music, but inevitably it's anecdotal, and one's personal life kind of gets entangled in it. And my editor, Barbara Nickel, who really sort of took me through this book, said, well, you can't leave stuff dangling. You've got to let the audience, your readers, know what's happening. But really, I wanted to write about music because music is a very abstract thing, and to talk about music, I think you have to approach it rather obliquely. I mean, to explain to the layman how music works and the lives of musicians that perform it. And it's around pieces which I have anecdotes and had experience of, and pieces that I love. And I partly wrote it because I think it's mostly classical, and classical music is in crisis with the slashing of the arts, and if you like, the slashing of educational money for music. Music is always the first thing to go, and yet it's the most probably richest pursuit that a child can have in as much as it develops both hemispheres of the brain. And partly it's a tribute to my late colleague Norman Nelson, who was a great character, a wonderful person to know, a great sense of humor, and I had the privilege of working with him for 50 years.
You're 83 now?
Yeah, coming on 84, I believe.
Okay.
It's very important at this time of my life.
Are you still playing?
I keep up, yes, to play with my students, otherwise they play better than me.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't play professionally now, no.
Gotcha. Kate, what inspired you to write your story?
Well, I traveled the world in words long before I ever had the chance to go out in the world myself. I grew up in a small town not far from Toronto and really lived through books. And I was drawn to books about grand adventures in far-flung lands that looked nothing like the landscape around me. And so when I finally did, one of the books that really compelled me as a little kid was this children's version of Marco Polo's Travels on the Silk Road. And as I grew older, he became a bit of an anti-hero for me. You know, he was very much a merchant, very sort of focused on the bottom line in his travels, and that wasn't what interested me at all about the Silk Road. I was compelled by its sort of grandeur, you know, the vastest mountain ranges on Earth and biggest deserts. So I hit the Silk Road to kind of defy Marco Polo's version of it, and
You did it on a bicycle?
On a bicycle, yeah, easier than a camel caravan these days.
I guess. That's, well, I mean, that's a crazy thing to do, right?
I suppose these are why books are dangerous. You know, they plant audacious ideas in our minds. Yeah, it never occurred to me that it wasn't something I could do. I mean, Marco Polo was 17 when he set off. It really was figuring out, you know, how to fund it and when I could free up my life to do it. And I knew I wanted to be a writer at that point, and so I hoped it would give me the, you know, material for something to work with on the page when I came back. It
did. Darrel, what made you want to revisit so much of the painful past that you have lived, starting in a very small place well north of Edmonton in Alberta?
Right. Well, there were some early seeds planted by reading that I did. When I read Margaret Lawrence's book, The Diviners, I imagined myself writing like her one day. I just thought that was such an amazing place to be, sitting by a window watching the river flow both ways. And then I read Marie-Claire Blais' book, Une saison dans la vie d'Emmanuel, and it was just such a unique and beautiful slice of Canadiana told in such a beautiful, raw way. And then I read Les Confessions. I mean, I read many other books in between, but Les Confessions de Jean-Jacques Rousseau was also an amazing inspiration to me, and that truly is his memoir. But then when I was a school principal in northern, so those were early seeds that were planted. And then when I was a school principal in northern British Columbia, in a wonderful little town called Yakuche, a First Nation community, I was working with a carrier elder named Catherine Bird, and we used to sit around telling each other stories after school. And one day she turned to me and with her big fingers said, "Darrel, you have to write those stories down. They'll help people someday." And it was a magical moment where I knew it was an instruction from, not just from Catherine, but from the universe, that I had to do this.
But these are not abstract stories from somebody else's life. These are your stories about your life, and a lot of them are really, really awful. Any qualms about sharing that?
No, I did truly. I took Catherine's advice at its word that they would help people someday. And I carried around for many years of my life a burden of guilt and shame about what had happened to me. And it was never self-pity, but guilt and shame about what had happened to me. And I really wanted to help other people who might be carrying a burden like that to come out from under it. That there's no shame, you can tell it all, that horrible things that happen to children and youth are never the fault of that child or youth. It's never our fault. So I just wanted to shed light on all of those things.
And you have. Bill, you got kids?
I have 4.
You have 4. I presume, and you're going to tell us now, I presume that you are parenting your 4 much differently than your father parented you. I think that goes without saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, very, very much so. We talk. But, you know, at the same time, and back to that kind of commonality of my story, my dad's story, there's still this, it's so common that we want to really, when we love family members, we want to communicate deeply, and it seems to fail a lot. There's always a wall, you know. So a lot of what I'm writing about has to do with that barrier that shouldn't, you know, it seems to exist. We can't see it or anything, but there's this yearning to communicate. And so anyway, I'm just saying that in one way, it's no different.
Well, can I make an analogy here? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a nut for baseball. And Bob Costas is one of the great baseball announcers of all time, and he never got along with his father either, had a very similar relationship. I thought of him actually when I was reading your book, except when they went to the baseball diamond. When they watched the Yankees play, somehow there was a simpatico, and it was fishing for you.
It was. We'd fish. That's what we did. We had an arrangement where he would come up. I was living on the boat, and for 5 or 6 summers running, and I was guiding professionally. And but I always set aside 3 weeks for my dad, and he'd come up and he'd fish and drink, but he'd fish, and we'd fish together, and we would often sit for hours and fish and be perfectly comfortable. We both shared a kind of patience that we were both completely content to sit there with nothing happening except nature in all its beauty kind of happening around us. And we shared that, and we didn't really know it until it was all over, how rare that is, that you can share that kind of quiet with someone and be perfectly content within that quiet. So yeah, that was our baseball, I guess.
That was your baseball.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, did you learn new things about your parents all these years later, writing about them now?
Well, you do. I mean, in writing about my parents, what I do in the book is write about the end of their lives, and the drama of the end of their lives, and then the lifelong drama of being their daughter, because they were a complicated and formidable and interesting pair of characters. And in writing about them, just as when you're writing fiction, you know, you have to give your characters room. And in writing about my parents having written novels, it was kind of an apprenticeship, I think, to see them as multifaceted characters and to let them have the room they needed to be everything they were.
That's not something you might have realized, though, in your teens or 20s or 30s.
Well, not at all,
right.
no. So for instance, the writing I did in my 30s and 40s about my father's anger was very much my point of view, and only mine, and my grievances, and only mine. Whereas, you know, in this memoir, I do hope that I've given room for their complexity, room for them to come alive fully.
Now, of course, your parents were in your life for a long time. Your mother was not in your life for a very long time at all, Darrel, right? She
That's right.
abandoned you when you were, what, 15?
10.
10. How does one get over the departure of their mother from their life at such a young age?
You don't. It was a trauma that I had to learn with, and you work around things like that. And you take compassion and caring wherever you find it. So luckily I had an older sister. She was 7 years older, and she took me in to live with her, and she became my surrogate mother. And and luckily there's another kind of almost supernatural element that entered into the picture. We moved to a place called Canmore, just outside of Calgary in Banff. And I really connected with the 3 mountains, well, one mountain called the Three Sisters. And the night we moved there, we got there around midnight, and I still remember the night there was like a half moon and kind of silver clouds, and I saw these mountains, and I was just mesmerized. And they changed me. I woke up the next morning a different person. I think I'd gone into a depression after Mother left, and the mountains nurtured me and brought me out of that childhood depression. They just fascinated me and saved my life.
Let me bring the family angle in with you, Kate, because I'm trying to imagine the conversation that you had with family and friends when you said, I'm just going to take a bicycle and go over to Asia and Eastern Africa and Southern Europe and just kind of bike for a while. How did they take that?
Well, I guess they were used to kind of crazy ideas for me. And for a long time, I was gunning to go to Mars as my big adventure.
You haven't given up on that yet, have you?
Well, I'm pretty in love with the Earth at this point. I don't think it's lacking for anything. But yeah, so after telling them I was going to go to another planet, like the Silk Road was small fry. So they were like, oh, good, you're staying on Earth.
You should just, for those who don't, you're staying on Earth. You should explain for those who don't know what the Silk Road is. I mean, it's been around for 500 years, and it's what?
So the Silk Road, it's a pretty fabled trade route at this point. For thousands of years, it ferried people, goods, and ideas between Europe and Asia. And Marco Polo really made it famous. He put it on the map, although we've only been referring to it as the Silk Road for the last 50 years or so. It was a German historian came up with the term because it was the transit point for many other goods besides silk.
But in some respects, it's not all that strange that you would choose to do something like this, because do you want to sort of explain to people how you live in British Columbia?
Oh, yeah. Well, I live off the grid.
Off the grid. That's a great expression.
Very tiny cabin. Yeah, off the grid in all senses. I live on the outskirts of this amazing little community of artists and adventurers, and surrounded by mountains. So it's a backdrop of natural splendor, but with an incredibly sort of disproportionately rich cultural scene for the size of 450 people.
Neat. I want to return you into the comment that you made earlier about classical music being in crisis, because I mean, it is a fact. You look around North America right now, and there are symphony orchestras that are folding. There are symphony orchestras that cannot turn a profit. There are, as you point out, governments that seem to feel that they have other priorities as opposed to the funding of musical education in school and so on. How horrified are you by all that?
Well, I'm greatly concerned. Historically, music historians say, well, modern music begins with Monteverdi, who lived between the 16th and 17th century. Have I got that right?
No
one here is going to call you on it, so it's okay.
In as much as any music written before Monteverdi we don't relate to. And I'm sort of kind of wondering now whether we've moved the barrier up to the end of the 18th century. We don't understand a Bach fugue. We can't deal with the niceties of a Mozart quartet. And music maybe has moved into the 19th century. People still go and hear Tchaikovsky. But those people who go and hear Tchaikovsky don't want to hear anything written after 1910. Stravinsky, Bartok, Shostakovich.
That's too modern.
But you see, there's no education for listeners to navigate this stuff. So the listeners somehow are left 100 years behind in what's really going on in the arts.
What do you think we should do about all that?
Well, one thing is, I think it's our fault. I think the people who present classical music are so scared of losing money, particularly in opera, you lose $1 million of production, that you only go for the well-used, well-loved. But of course, the blue rinse crowd are dying off all the time, and the younger people have nothing to navigate with. So I think musical education is very important. In England, at the end of the Second World War, there was a great deal of education because the British felt that not only were they under fire of the Blitz, but also of culture itself. And they, one forgets that music is used for elevation and for solace. I sometimes quote, there was a love song that was written down in 1100, and it's a love song which speaks to an emotion which we all feel. And yet, probably the lovesick swain was rarely stricken by a girl with rickets and rheumy eyes, bad teeth, but she was the girl of our choice. And 1,000 years later, it still relates to us. But, we don't have the perspective historically or musically to want to appreciate. I say want to appreciate.
Right.
Because once you've become enamored of something you've picked up in a record store, then you can follow your adventures any route you like.
There was in listening to everybody, the constellation of music and the constellation of nature is common to all 5 books. And certainly my mother in her last years. I mean, she loved music and she loved nature. She was a painter. So in her last years, when she had a lot of dementia, there were two things that returned her to herself. One was being outside in nature, just outside in the open air, and the other was listening to music.
Music is the last to go. People with dementia can still remember music. I know musicians with dementia, which happens very seldom. Musicians don't get it. But some who do, music is, they always remember. And my wife and I, we used to go and play carols in an old people's home when my mother-in-law was still alive. And there was a dragon lady there with dementia. Everybody was a bit afraid of her. But we played carols, and then this lady sang in the most seraphic way. She had this wonderful voice. Sort of something else came out of her.
Music is magic.
Yes, it's magical.
It is. You're all, of course, writers, so I should ask you some questions about writing. And Elizabeth, let me just start with you. You've written a memoir here, but you've also written fiction. What's the difference? How do you approach it differently?
Well, the memoir is first person, and I'm very comfortable. I mean, I used to be in radio. When in the days when radio had not been supplanted by television, people were more aware of music. I mean, that's part of what was going on with the BBC in Britain, right? Yeah. And the concerts that were. So, but I have a literal mind, and when I write in the first person, I just seem to be writing from me. I mean, about me. So, in the third person, I'm able to write fiction, and fiction is freedom and invention.
Are you more detached from it because it's not first person?
You have to be fully in it, but you're to one side of yourself more. And then with the with autobiographical work, I have this strong accent I can't get rid of. You know, I'm just me in the first person. I can't seem to be anything else.
How about for you? This is your first book, right?
Yes.
Hard to write?
Oh, it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It's not harder than
rewarding.
It can't be harder than riding a bicycle for thousands of miles across Asia.
By far.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Okay, explain that.
Well, bicycle, you know where you're aiming. It's just one pedal stroke after another. And no matter how sort of exhausted you are, you can still just keep moving forward until you can't, and then you wake up the next day and continue. It's very linear, very satisfying in that sense. There's an obvious finish line you're heading toward. Whereas the writing, I mean, I didn't want to write a book that was just about the day-to-day of biking the Silk Road. That wasn't why I wanted to be out in the world, to just do that. I wanted to explore bigger ideas and our place in the wild scheme of things. And so the challenge of the book was figuring out how to let the bike trip digress in ways that were hopefully elegant and not abrupt into those bigger ideas that I was obsessed with as I was biking, thinking about borders and the history of exploration and how we're transforming our world for better and for worse. And the Silk Road is an interesting case study for that because it's the world's oldest superhighway. It's like the internet before there was internet. And yet there are still these patches of true wildness and a wildness that includes people living with more sort of proximity to and reverence for the natural world. And so that was exciting, heartening to see.
I still can't believe it's harder to write a book than it is to
By
cycle.
far.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. How old were you, Darrel, when you knew you wanted to write your life story?
I would have been probably about 32.
So more than a few years ago.
It was when Catherine Bird, I was that age when Catherine Bird told me I should write my stories.
And has it, I mean, how old are you now?
I'm 60.
Okay, so 28 years later, you got the book out.
That's right.
Okay, question, why'd you wait so long?
Well, I wrote snippets. I didn't think I would write a memoir. I thought I was going to write short stories about a character who was me, but it would be in the form of fiction. And A couple of years before I left full-time work, I took a course with a wonderful woman named Betsy Warland, a course called Memoir of Inquiry at Simon Fraser University. And, you know, we started writing short compositions, and it just morphed into short stories. And after a year of working with Betsy, I had 26 short stories, which she suggested I cobble into a manuscript, and I did. And you know, it took 6 years. The process actually took 6 years from the time I started studying with Betsy to the time I had a fully developed and final manuscript. But it was a long and difficult process in many ways. I mean, the physical mechanics of writing are harder than riding a bicycle because you're seated, you know, at a computer for anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day. At least that's what I did.
I think your feet don't hurt as much, but you're right. It's bad. It's bad for the back. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly. Yeah. But there was also, you know, dealing with all of the psychology of it all. In my case, and you know, really dealing with the structure of the book. I wanted to create a work of art above, and that was my first goal, was to create a work of art. And secondly, I wanted to tell my story and tell it in a very meaningful way. And I didn't want to do a sort of chronological telling of my life. People would say to me, "So you're writing a memoir. Are you somebody important? You know, were you the Prime Minister of Canada, or a former Minister of Justice, or somebody who has a story to tell?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not any of those things, but I have a story to tell."
That's the point, I think, is that, you know, let me go over here with this. You don't necessarily have to be a big shot. You don't have to be Prime Minister of Canada. It seems like every family's got a story to tell. Now, you two happen to be lucky enough to be writers, and you can tell it. I am curious as to, since your folks are not around, what would your dad think of this book?
Ooh, I don't know. I'd like to think that, you know he loved me, you know, a lot, and the fact that I feel good about it. So I think that would be enough for him, I think. He'd be glad. I think he'd be glad that I did what I wanted to do.
Even though he doesn't necessarily come off too well in every page of this thing.
No, but he's the hero in the end. You know, he really is. I think I'm the villain, actually. That was my design. You know, but no, I think he'd be fine. I think he'd be fine. He'd be proud, and he'd be. I hope he'd be okay with his secrets being spilled. You know. That's
an open question, right? Because you didn't exactly get his permission to tell all this.
Not at all, and he chose not to tell them. Mm-hmm. You know, he could have told them at any time and completely redeemed himself. Everybody would have understood. Oh, okay, that's why you are the way you are. That explains so much, you know. And he chose not to. Sometimes I thought that it's quite possible that he, the trauma he suffered when he was 10, actually, didn't allow him to even admit to himself what had happened. He might have been in complete denial, the kind of depth of denial that he pretended it away. That's also possible. You know.
Elizabeth, I'll give you the last word here tonight. If your parents could read this book, what would they think?
I think they're very glad that they're not reading it. I think they'd be happy not to read it. On the other hand, I think they would be gratified that I devoted so much time and effort to writing about them, to thinking about them. Mm-hmm. My mother, when I was about 30, I wrote a story about how fanatical she was about not wasting food, and I gave it to her to read, and she said it made her squirm. Mm-hmm. Made her squirm. Mm-hmm. But then a week later, she phoned me up and she said, "You know, I give you your freedom to write about me as you wish. Not everybody would react to the story as I'm reacting." She never gave me my freedom to write about my father, though.
Yes, that's different.
That's different. She was very protective of him.
Well, I'm so glad we could continue this tradition, because it is a beautiful thing to have 5 such wonderful authors around this table to tell their stories, with 5 great books nominated. And on Monday, one of you is going to be $30,000 richer. So whoever that is, congratulations. And actually, you know, congratulations to everybody on your nominations. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you for joining us here on TVO tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.